Good day and thanks for joining us today. My name is Terry Lynch and I'm the chairman of Chilean Metals. Chilean's got a very exciting story and we're looking forward to bringing it to you today. When we talk about Chilean Metals, one of the things we like to sort of lead with is that we're a discovery story with a hedge. What does it exactly mean, a discovery story with a hedge? Well, you'll see as we go through it that one of the underpinnings to Chilean Metals' story is that we have a very significant royalty with TECK. And this royalty provides huge potential upside for us in the near term. We'll speak to it in detail as we go through it. And what we'll see is when you look at our market cap today versus its potential, the royalty more than sort of provides for that. And then we've got a number of exciting exploration opportunities. So without any further ado, let's learn a bit more about Chilean. As usual, standard disclaimer, so you have to do your own due diligence, but we're trying to be truthful and factual today. The discovery curve is a curve that you've probably seen if you're interested in investing in junior mining. What's unique about Chilean in this perspective is that we're really sort of at two spots in the curve. We have the standard exploration side of the curve where we're down here, but with our royalty, we're sort of over here. So that's unique, and I don't think you'll find that in a lot of junior exploration stories, and that's why we highlight it on the opening. We think now is a great time to look at junior mining in general and Chilean Metals in particular. The mining markets have probably turned about a year and a half ago. And they're ramping up, and you can see from the swings when the junior mining market turns, the swings can be quite significant, and that will float a lot of boats. And we think it's in fact a great time to be getting into junior mining. We'll get into why in just a sec. These are the core reasons why we feel you should invest in Chilean Metals. We're going to go through them sequentially. We're going to lead off with the strong copper bull market. So this is, I guess, August 29th, so copper was 308, I think it's around 315, 320 today. Copper's really heading north, and it looks like it's turned, and it's probably going to have a multi-year run here. The reasons are varied, but let's go through them. I think probably the one that's front of mind for most people is that the electrical car demand is going to go skyrocketing for lots of reasons, and every car on the electrical side of things takes about 9 times as much copper. And with China and India really advancing their electrical plans, and that's sort of come out in the last 6 to 9 months, the global forecasts for copper demand in the future are significantly advanced, and that's going to have a strong bullish trend in copper prices. As we sort of move beyond the copper story, one of the things we led on the opening, we talked about the royalty that we have with TECK. So TECK is obviously a multi-billion-dollar major base metal producer. One of its existing mines is called Quebrada Blanca, and it's in Chile. So adjacent in Chile, we had a deposit, we had an exploration play called Copacari, and we spent about $23 million US or thereabouts over a number of years prior to my involvement in the company, and they had discovered a very significant deposit. 2 of them, in fact, one a copper moly and another more sort of moly copper. 200 million tons, 100 million tons, 43-101, significant deposits. We sold that deposit to TECK for $3 million and a 3% royalty several years ago, back in the very teeth of this recession. And since that time, obviously the markets have turned, and now Quebrada Blanca is at sort of a critical phase in its development. It has 2 phases to Quebrada Blanca 1 and Quebrada Blanca 2. Quebrada Blanca 1 is just about run out of ore, and that highlights an opportunity for us because that's sort of the reason why TECK acquired Copacari. Quebrada Blanca 2 is a multi-billion-dollar project that's almost permanent now. We expect to have word from TECK and the Chilean government that QB2 will be fully permitted in sometime in Q1 in next year. Post that news, one would expect, our understanding at least, is that there'll be a thorough assessment of how Copacari fits into the mine plan for QB1 and 2 in sort of in quarter 2, and we'd expect to get some news on how Copacari fits in the QB1 and QB2 mine plans going forward, probably as early as Q3 next year. That's significant for us. Just to give you some perspective, QB1, which is going to be shut down for lack of ore, is sort of an oxide copper smelter. In 2012, at 342 copper, it generated almost 700 million in sales, 696 million. So our royalty is 3%, but TECK can buy back 1% for 3 million. So best to think of it as a 2% royalty with a $3 million kicker. So you can imagine 2% of 696 million, I mean, that's on a 342 copper, you know, that's a lot of money. It's $14 million. So even last year at, you know, copper prices probably 250, they did $240 million or thereabouts. So somewhere between 5 and 14 would be a sweet number for Chilean metals, given our market cap today is probably 7-8 million. So it's almost like an annual market cap hit. So that's why this royalty, which it's just a matter of time. You know, it's not, we don't think there's any question that this is going to get produced. Will it get produced in 2 years or 1 year or 5 years? That's what we need to sort of, you know, learn from Teck, probably as soon as early next year. These are the deposits, so you can actually see the reasons why they would do this. The 43-101s are there. These are significant land packages with significant deposits already proven up, and there's advanced exploration opportunities to even layer this up, add both grade and size. So again, we're talking, you know, significant cash flows for you know, for Teck to be able to do this. So we think that's, you know, between adding the significant cash flows, plus what's unique, when we did a little research, we found out they have take-or-pay electrical contracts. So if they shut this mine down for the next 4 years, they still have to pay $6-7 million a month in electrical. They still have workers that are going to be going away and going elsewhere that they could keep on site for a job they'll eventually have to do in QB2. So there's a lot of incentives, we think, in addition to the obvious cash flow incentives for Teck to sort of get this going in the near term. Now, you know, the royalty we see as a huge underpinning to our valuation, but, you know, you're investing in junior mining for the exploration upside. The neat thing about Chilean is, I think, you know, at the valuation now, you're basically getting the exploration for free. And we've got some great near-term plays, one in Nova Scotia called Bass River, and one in Chile called Zulema, and we're going to tell you more about those right now. So Bass River, in Nova Scotia, we did a JV with a company called Tejas. They're a private equity group out of Dallas. We did a JV with them because, you know, our stock price is low and exploration funding is very difficult to come by, and we wanted to, you know, take a shot at this exploration play, but in the least dilutive way possible. So what will happen is Tejas will basically fund this first round of exploration, which will cost us around $400,000. Nova Scotia drilling is quite reasonable, quite attractive. We're drilling, I don't know if people are familiar with Nova Scotia. I actually grew up in Nova Scotia, and this is outside of a town called Truro, which is a fairly major city in Nova Scotia. So the project, in terms of commencement, it's now November 1st. We'll start drilling probably in early December, possibly late November. While we're just finalizing our exploration plans, we, you know, identified some additional staking opportunities, which we took advantage of, and we're just wrapping that up before we sort of press release the whole thing and kick it off. But so that exploration will start, and so you'll see first there'll be a pulse electromagnetic survey over our identified drill locations, just to fine-tune our drilling. And the interesting thing with Nova Scotia is that Minotaur exploration is sort of the lead sort of, I guess, brain exploration-wise behind the project. And Minotaur is a very interesting company. A number of successful discoveries on their track record, including Prominent Hill, which basically made Oz Minerals a $1 billion junior. They, you know, several 100 million ton deposit of 1% copper, 1 gram gold. So they had a theory, and the theory was this: wherever continental shelves meet, there's crustal faults formed, and these crustal faults act as sort of an opportunity for fluids like metals and opportunities to flow up. And everywhere else in the world where these crustal faults, the continental shelves have met, there's been major porphyry and IOCG and VMS discoveries, but not so much in Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia was very thoroughly under-discovered. So what happened is Minotaur came in, and with the backing of Goodman, a dynamic group, they made a multi-million-dollar investment in Nova Scotia as a regional geological play. So they basically literally surveyed the entire province, and then they cherry-picked the survey and took the best land positions, and then they did more advanced geophysics work. And some of the stuff is you'll start to see, you'll notice on this slide, this will be our first drill location. It's called BRN VT01, and you'll see this huge anomaly here, and we're super excited about that. It's the biggest anomaly we've seen in Nova Scotia, after all the research we've done. So it's pretty exciting. So we're sort of highlighting that in our drill program. You can see the ground cover. It's basically effectively a mountain, and it's sort of forested and easy to drill. So the good news is that while it's starting in the winter, no problem to do that. In fact, it's better. The ground's frozen, so we'll be advancing this fairly quickly this winter. So we expect to be, as I said, drilling in early December, and probably we'll get the first phase done before Christmas, and then the second phase will start sort of January 4th or so. So we'll get our first results out probably the second week of January, and then there'll be ongoing results for the next month. So it'll probably be about a 3-month drill program altogether, somewhere around 3,000 meters. In terms of where we're at, I think we sort of covered it. Basically, the timeline is, we'll do the pulse electromagnetic survey this month in November, and then we'll advance to drilling in early December with a 2-phase drilling program, sort of 3 weeks before Christmas and about 5 weeks after, and that'll drill about 3,000 meters, and we're pretty excited about what we might find. And with a name like Chilean Metals, we got to talk about Chile. The interesting thing when I first got involved with Chile, I was thinking, wow, this is great, Chilean sea bass and Chilean wines. This will be sort of a cool thing to do. And I went down there and I found the world's driest desert, and there's no strawberries and no sea bass, and it is what it is. But what it is, from a mineral exploration perspective, it is a nirvana of copper exploration. So where we're at is we're outside of a small town called Copiapó. Copiapó is probably most famous for most of you for the Chilean mining disaster that happened around Copiapó. That was sort of the central town. So we're just about 40 clicks outside the town, which is great. So it's a town of about 200,000 people or so. So quite easy to sort of access a labor pool, and very educated people. So that's a great thing from a mining perspective. Our people can go home at night. It makes it much cheaper to operate. So the valley, this Copiapó River Valley, has been generated a number of great exploration and development targets over the years. Probably the biggest of which is Candelaria. We're about 30 clicks center to center of our property to the center of Candelaria. Candelaria was discovered by Phelps Dodge. I'll talk a bit about discovery in a sec. And brought into, I guess Freeport-McMoRan bought those guys, and ultimately was sold just about 3 years ago after 20 years plus service to Lundin for over $2 billion, and it's still running. And Lundin's having great success advancing the deposit even further, and Lundin's been very helpful to us. What's interesting about Candelaria and about this area is that a lot of it is basically a sand plain. So you have basically alluvial sand over these rocks. And it takes a certain sort of technique to explore in these types of environments. And this is where we think in Chile the next big discoveries will be made, is be in these alluvial sand plains. For the most part, much like Canada, the exposed rocks have been chipped and sampled, and where that was promising, things have followed up on that. You notice, like with the rebirth of Timmins and Val d'Or, it's largely been because of the ability to go through and check out the muskeg with the VTEMs and ZTEMs, and that's allowed us to sort of see underneath the mushy surface to where there might be prospective rocks to drill. Well, the same thing in Chile, only there's no muskegs there, it's sand. So there's some unique geological things you must do in order to explore successfully there, and we're learning that by going forward, and by also talking to our very helpful neighbors. So basically, Candelaria, just to give you a perspective of how potentially big this area is and why it's so super exciting. It's now, when it was opened up, it was 600 million tons of, effectively a little over 1% copper equivalent. It's now probably collectively over almost 1 billion tons combined. So that's a massive deposit. So in between Candelaria and the rest of the region, there's probably 7 or 8 deposits between 100 million tons to 1 billion tons. So great analogs. If you find something there, it's going to be massive, and that'll be great. The interesting thing about the discovery of Candelaria is that it was basically discovered somewhat by accident. The driller was supposed to stop, and I may get the depth wrong, he was supposed to stop at I want to say 120 meters, and he went through to 150, and he clipped the top of the deposit, and the rest was sort of history, you know. So it's interesting how that happens sometimes in exploration. You know, better to be lucky than good in some respects. But again, they were in an alluvial sand plain, drilled down through the sand, clipped the top. This top was about 200 meters square, and then obviously it mushroomed out. But you know, what's interesting for us, as you'll see with our exploration, you know, you got to find that 200 meters square in a very large land package. So that's the trick. So on our project, Zulema is about 4,500 hectares. That's like the size of the city of Toronto, just to give you some perspective. So in that size of the city of Toronto, we're trying to find what may be at the top a 200 meter square section. So that's why geology and prospecting and junior mining is difficult, because if that was easy, everyone would do it. Now, what we did in our first wave of exploration is we used, just for costs and for generative purposes, we used an IP grid of about 800 meters, and that identified a number of prospects for it, and we followed these up. And so this was sort of our initial set of drilling, and maybe we'll go to the drilling slide. We had some really interesting intersections, okay? So what we've discovered was an IOCG system, okay? And that's very difficult to do. So we had, you know, grades like, you know, 1.1% copper and a gram of gold. Those would be spectacular grades, but they need to be a lot bigger. This was only a 2-meter section. We needed it to be 100 meters, and then you know, the world would be rocking. What's interesting is that these lenses come from somewhere, and what we need to do is find the source. So you can see, if you look at our drilling results, that we've intersected several of these lenses across sort of the plateau of where we were drilling. And now we're sort of going to narrow in the grid. You can sort of look through the grades and discoveries and sort of see that there's a lot of interesting intersections, but no material width to them. So that's the trick. We got to get more width, and we sort of think we have the strategy to do that. We've been very fortunate. Lundin has been super helpful. They obviously own Candelaria, and they would be the logical person that one would talk to in this area. And we spoke to them, and they've been very cooperative. They've actually showed us their exploration techniques, what's working on advancing the mine deposit at Candelaria. And they said that they said, look, you've got an IOCG system, you've got to find the source. And they said, hardest thing to do is to find the system and to find the source. From their perspective, what they've done and what we're doing is exactly this. They basically do some IP, which is called MIMDAS. It's a particular type of IP that we're going to do. They overlay that with the IP, with the magnetics, and then they do some geochemistry, i.e. go down and sample the soil underneath the alluvial plain. And if the IP high, the magnetic high, and the soil chemistry makes sense in terms of attractiveness, then you drill. And they've significantly advanced their deposit by doing that, and we think that we can do that as well. So what we're going to do in this next round of exploration is basically shrink the grid from 800 meters to sort of 200 meters, and we think we're going to sort of identify where this source is, and then we'll see what we've got in Zulema. So where we're at with that is, you know, we've secured our money. We're going to start this ground geophysical program. We'll probably be announcing that. We're just signing the contracts this week. As soon as we get the geophysics done, Minotaur, you know, will be reprocessing the data and identifying, you know, from their perspective, where we think the most prospective drill locations will be. And then we'll look to advance a second drill program in Q1 of 2018. You know, what's interesting, you know, with the mining market turning, you know, we're now finally, you know, for the first time in, you know, 5 or 6 years, getting calls about, hey, would you guys like to joint venture something? You know, they know that we have got multiple properties in Nova Scotia. We got there early, got sort of one of the largest land packages in the province, if not the largest. And we've been in Chile for 25 years and have you know, 5 great packages there. So most people, you know, I guess when you're at a market cap of 7 million, you know, people are not thinking about these hidden assets, but they're there. They're little gems, and I would expect sometime between now and probably PDAC that we'll farm out 1, possibly 2 of these projects. And you know, these farm outs could potentially provide us another significant window of opportunity, just like we're doing with Bass River, where the Bass River terms, we still maintain 65% of the ownership, and we get this wave of exploration done for free. So in the junior mining world, you want to have tickets lottery tickets happening in sort of logical, exciting places. All the great science in the world, which we're advancing with people that are, our scientific team is top tier. You'll see in a second that one of our, they've had multiple billion-dollar discoveries, both of our lead geophysical and geological teams. But you have to have also diversify your risk and get a number of shots on goal. So we think that our hidden assets will start to generate that, and in addition to our existing exploration programs. So we touched a bit about the team. You sort of have myself, I'm the chairman, Pat's the CEO, and Gary's our VP of exploration. We're sort of the mouthpieces and the managers, but it's the scientific team on the bottom row that really gives us confidence. Dr. Tony Belperio from Minotaur, who had discovered Prominent Hill and several other discoveries. Chris Hodgson in Chile was the lead explorationist behind Santo Domingo deposit, which was Far West sold for over 700 million, and Chris, first rock in the ground on that. Ian Perry used to be the top operating guy in terms of the science side of things at InMet. So a great team for a junior to have, and I don't think you'll find much better than that. And then, and then how we do things, before we go drilling, is we have this advisory committee. We review sort of the data, and we're really able to pull in a lot of great technical expertise. People that have done this, spent a lot of millions of dollars over the years, so helping us spend our very precious money wisely, and we think that's a real plus for Chilean. So let's wrap it up. So I think 2017, we got some things going. We had some exploration happening in Chile. Didn't get the prize we wanted from Alima first kick, but we did have some, I would say we did bounce a few off the post. So we need to get closer, we need to put it in the net. So 2018, here's our sort of our coming forward. So we've got Bass River is first up. That's the Nova Scotia project. It's that giant blip on the screen, the big technical anomaly that you saw. And so we'll be drilling on that in late November, early December. And we'll get results probably to the market, I would expect results starting in sort of second week of January. That'll probably take us through to the end of January on the drilling season. And at that time, with Chile, what we're doing is we'll probably announce early next week that we're the IP and geophysics program that we're doing in Chile to sort of fine-tune our exploration efforts in Chile, and which will lead to drilling in Chile in Q3. Obviously, we're going to monitor TECK's developments, both with QB2, because obviously they're focused on getting that done and in the chute first, and then we'll understand probably from TECK sometime, mid to early next year, how we fit into the Copacabana fits into the TECK mine plan for QB1 and 2, and obviously to the extent that gets crystallized, our royalty value goes up dramatically, obviously, our stock right now is, near a low, 52-week low. And it was that way because we were out with the financing and the market knew it, saw it coming, and sort of, as it does with juniors, sits and sort of waits. So we're done, and we've raised the money, we're moving forward now. So it's a tremendous time to sort of get in at this level. So now we're stepping on the gas, doing things like this, talking to investors at luncheons and pressing the envelope. So IR and communication is a big part of our push. So that's going to start to happen a lot here over the next couple of quarters. And then, we're going to see what we've got and advance it as we go forward. So I think that pretty much wraps up the Chilean story, other than let's take a look at the cap structure. About 85 million shares outstanding right now. I think yesterday was closed around 8 cents, so it gives you like a $7 million market cap. The low to high, 7 to 33, so it gives you, this is the, if you're a believer in, events turning mining and also copper, then hard not to like Chilean metals as part of your exploration portfolio. We're on multiple exchanges. And what's interesting, we were probably the first junior mining company listed in Santiago, and that's got some interesting possibilities for us as well. So that's Chilean metals, the discovery story with a hedge. As I said, we think that you'll find it a great opportune time to get into investing in Chilean metals. And please, join our website, sign into our newsletter, and please be updated by our what we think will be a number of positive news stories coming soon. And we look forward to answering any questions that you might have and to helping you to understand our investment opportunity. Thanks again, and have a great day.